The size of the territory is similar. Remember, there are 5 states involved in Katrina. So if we look at the geography, it's similar. There are more people involved in the United States, as one would anticipate. There's one major city, very similar, New Orleans and Brisbane. But there are a lot of smaller towns that have been very much affected, so we can't forget that. There's a regional ecology that's been affected. The ecology has no respect for political boundaries. The fact that something's Queensland or New South Wales, the river doesn't care. So we have to come up with a strategy that deals with that. But New Orleans was a total destruction, and this is a cleanup operation. Very different. Most of the homes will be able to clean up and re-inhabit it. In New Orleans, those homes were gone. There was nothing to clean up. The water moved the house away, or it destroyed it. So there's an opportunity in New Orleans to actually reconsider where you're going to build. And I would say that opportunity has to be taken in Queensland as well. We have to decide where we're going to build, how we're going to build, and not hope for the best, but prepare for the future. Well, I think the most important thing that people need to understand is the emergency is not the recovery. Stabilizing the place, rescuing people from the tops of buildings, organizing and cleaning up is not a recovery. It's much like stabilizing a patient. The patient still needs a major operation before they start the recovery process. So it's very important early on that a recovery plan be organized. The first thing you have to do is understand that this is going to be a long-term venture. Again, using the patient analogy, after the operation, you are not recovered. You are recovering. And so you have to have a prescription for that recovery, and this plan is that prescription for recovery. The second thing is you have to have the capacity to deal with all the elements of recovery. Even though your leg was hurt, your head and everything else has to be worked with and coordinated. So you have to have a coordinated, functioning apparatus, call it an authority, or some organization that has the responsibility to coordinate and to actually implement the recovery process. You have to have an infrastructure plan that prepares you for the next disaster. You can't wait for the next disaster. You can't simply clean up and fix up and hope for the best. As you are doing your plan, you incorporate within it the next disaster or likely disasters, because that means you have to move land, you may have to move buildings, you may have to come up with new standards for building. In Queensland, for example, along the river, all the buildings on the river are going to have to be steel bolted in before they're allowed to be on the river. There are places where people took big chances. They said this is a 100-year flood area. Well, it's not 100 years, it's 1 in 100 chances. And there's 1 in 100 chances of you being hit by a car walking across the street against the light. Are you going to take that chance? I don't think so. The same thing's true here, that we have to come up with a 1 in 10,000 chance. That is the chance that you should operationalize. So there are some areas that should be rebuilt. And the Dutch technique of rebuilding should be used, where you build canals and walkways and things and let the water come through the city on a regular basis so it doesn't build up, debris doesn't build up in channels. And when you have large-scale rains like this, you're still free of having a major catastrophe. I think communication is very important, and the communications have multiple tiered communication. But one of the things that I think you need is independent sources of information that don't come just from the local media, don't come just from the government, but come from experts. And almost immediately, I think it would be very intelligent for the federal government to set up a little group of experts who continually provide information and feedback to the governments on both sides and the people as to what this recovery is, how it's going, and how it should go. And there are many good people in this country who could serve on that panel, but there should be some international expertise as well.